Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, breaking news. The split verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs trial, and late today, the judge denying bail. The urgent search for the missing in a fireworks disaster and severe storms threaten the 4th of July getaway. First, Sean Combs, just before we came on the air, learning the judge has refused to release him. He will stay behind bars ahead of his sentencing, facing potentially 20 years in prison, found guilty on 2 prostitution counts, but avoiding a possible life sentence, not guilty on racketeering and sex trafficking. What the judge said, why he refused to release Combs, citing what he calls Combs' propensity for violence, the reaction to the verdict from the lawyer of his one-time girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, seen on that 2016 hotel security camera footage, and the legal problems ahead for Combs, including dozens of civil suits. Aaron Katursky from the courthouse in Manhattan. The urgent search for victims tonight after a massive explosion levels a fireworks warehouse in Northern California. 7 people still missing, evacuations in place, fireworks shooting into the sky and triggering multiple fires. Millions on the move ahead of the 4th of July holiday on what's expected to be one of the busiest days on the roads. A record number of Americans heading to their destination, with severe weather disrupting air travel, and the tropical threat off the coast of Florida. Lee Goldberg timing out the forecast. Tight security amid the drama in an Idaho courtroom. Brian Koberger admitting to the murders of 4 college students, stabbing them to death in an off-campus house. Koberger answering yes when asked if he understood the charges against him. His parents just feet away. The late reaction from the families of the victims, our team in the courtroom. President Trump's mega budget bill hits a snag in the House one day after squeaking by in the Senate. Can Republicans get it done before the president's 4th of July deadline? Mary Bruce from the White House. Terror in the water, a shark appearing to chase a surfer moments after attacking him. Other surfers racing him to safety. A piece from an airplane's wing found in a suburban driveway where it came from. Britain's Princess Kate opening up about her cancer battle. And how American zoos are helping animals beat the scorching heat. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Well, a major victory for fairness in women's sports. The president said he would get this done. He meant it, and he's doing it. The University of Pennsylvania says it will now apologize for allowing biological male swimmer, a man, Leah Thomas, to compete on its women's swim team. And the school says it will no longer allow men to compete in women's athletics going forward. That decision comes as a resolution to a Title IX lawsuit brought by the Trump administration Education Secretary, Linda McMahon. And here she is reacting on the Ingram angle.
We've signed an agreement with them, and we hope that that agreement is going to be a template for other universities who acknowledge that there is no room for men and women's sports. The university is apologizing. It is taking away the titles that were incorrectly given to men. We've righted a wrong today.
One of Leah Thomas's former teammates, Paula Scanlon, claims the school's apology didn't go far enough.
What I did not like about this apology was that they just simply said, well, we were following the rules. To my question, Title IX has always been what it is. How is it just changing the rules that men can magically be women for a couple of years and then went back to reality? I still, they've been given no justification for that. I think, again, this is a wonderful start. I think we've seen the Trump administration has been so strong on this. I appreciate their leadership in this issue. It shows that they really are doers. They're getting things done. They're doing exactly what they promised, and I'm so grateful for that.
And former NCAA swimmer, champion, and women's sports activist Riley Gaines joined me on the Faulkner Focus last hour. She told me she hopes the decision will inspire more female athletes to speak out.
I hope we see the likes of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Of course, we saw where Simone Biles was on this issue, which is really sad. Venus and Serena Williams. I mean, I can think of so many athletes, female athletes with prominent platforms who I would just love to link arms with in this battle, who would celebrate this and praise again the actions that we have seen from the Trump administration.
All right, Ainsley, I think back to that all-women's town hall, October 15th, leading up to the presidential election last year, and the president bringing that town hall to its feet when I asked, well, how are you going to get this done? How are you just going to take men out of women's sports? He said, I'm just going to do it.
Take their money away, right? I am so proud of him, proud of Linda McMahon for really focusing on our girls, our daughters. You have athletic children, and I have an athletic daughter, so I'm so grateful for this because it's taken away scholarships. It really goes against everything that Title IX stands for. That was all about fairness for women. So for me, it's about fairness, and it is about...
On this Wednesday night, Canadian buy vaccines. Why some of them say the government broke its promise to help them.
I do not want to be the poster child for the anti-vax movement.
A global news investigation into a $50 million federal program. It's not easy being green. Why automakers say Canada needs to hit the brakes on electric vehicle targets. The mixed verdict at the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. How long he could be in prison. Plus, what happened to Amelia Earhart 88 years ago? The evidence spurring a new odyssey to solve one of the world's biggest aviation mysteries.
I think we just might do it.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with troubling revelations about a government program meant to protect the unfortunate few legitimately injured by vaccines. The Vaccine Injury Support Program was created during the pandemic to compensate people who suffered serious and permanent side effects. But a global news investigation reveals 4 years later, only a fraction of the millions in taxpayer dollars funding that program is reaching those in need. Here's Carolyn Jarvis with part one of a three-part series.
Hello, good morning. It is 8 a.m. and on today's show, Form or Die, the Prime Minister's message for the NHS ahead of a major announcement this morning on the future of the service.
Plus, Health Secretary tells this programme, Rachel Reeves, as Chancellor is here to stay. We'll speak to her counterpart, Mel Stride, in the next few minutes.
It is Thursday, the 3rd of July. Sir Keir Starmer promises a seismic shift to bring the NHS into the 21st century. The government denies the Chancellor is on her way out after tears in the Commons raise big questions for Labour.
To knock this issue on the head, Green is here to stay.
Also ahead, we've got a special report on the cheap synthetic drug wrecking lives of West Africa's poorest communities. And Sean Combs is denied bail as he awaits sentencing on 2 counts of transportation to commit prostitution. Emma Raducanu into the 3rd round of Wimbledon. Up next, world number 1, Arina Sabalenka. Good morning and thank you for being with us. The Prime Minister has warned the NHS.
This is Asia Now.
It's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi, and 1 o'clock in Jakarta. And Grace Shin, and at this hour. Indonesian rescuers scrambled to find dozens missing after a ferry carrying 65 people sank. That is on its way to the popular resort island of Bali. At least 4 bodies have been recovered. The U.S. and Vietnam strike a trade deal. Donald Trump announces a 20% tariff on Vietnamese exports, down from an earlier threat of 46%, as Hanoi agrees to open its market to U.S. goods. Thailand swears in its new cabinet with the 3rd person in just 1 week now serving as acting prime minister. That is after Paetongtarn Shinawatra was suspended amid a deepening political crisis.
This is DW News live from Berlin. Israeli attacks claim more lives in Gaza as a barely functioning healthcare system faces more challenges. Gaza's mourn a hospital director killed in an Israeli airstrike as the situation in the territory worsens. That's in spite of renewed talks of a possible ceasefire. Also coming up, 4 people are confirmed dead, dozens still missing after a ferry sinks en route to the Indonesian island of Bali. We'll go live to Jakarta for the latest. And a jury in the U.S. acquits music mogul Sean Diddy Combs of sex trafficking and racketeering charges, but finds him guilty of prostitution offenses. The 55-year-old could still face 20 years behind bars.
Anna Kofrilic, welcome to the program.
Today, disgraced music mogul Sean Diddy Combs denied bail. He's now awaiting sentencing on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Strong winds and Warragamba Dam spills as weather conditions begin to ease along the New South Wales coast. Hamas says it's reviewing the terms of a 60-day Gaza ceasefire proposal put forward by the US. And Australia's Jordan Thompson comes from behind to win another grueling 5-set match to make the 3rd round of Wimbledon. Hello, welcome to ABC News. I'm Rose Childs. A New York jury has returned a split verdict in the high-profile trial of big-name rapper Sean Diddy Combs. He's been acquitted of the more serious charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, but found guilty on prostitution-related offences. The judge has ordered Combs stay in jail until he's sentenced. North America correspondent Lauren Day reports from the Manhattan court.
Sex trafficking, Alexandra Ventura, not guilty. Transportation for prostitution, guilty.
As the crowd outside court was read the verdict, inside, Sean Diddy Combs pumped his fist and knelt in prayer before telling his family he'd be home soon. The hip-hop mogul was accused of leading a criminal enterprise that forced women to engage in days of drug-fueled sex acts with male escorts, known as freak-offs. Today, the jury of 8 men and 4 women delivered a mixed verdict, finding Combs guilty of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, but clearing him of sex trafficking and racketeering charges that could have put him behind.
Hiroshima Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.
Welcome back to today's headlines. France calls the detention of 2 French nationals in Iran charged with spying for the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad totally arbitrary. A French diplomat, though, has been able to visit them in prison, providing at least proof that they are still alive. We'll hear from our correspondent in Tehran in just a moment. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vows again to totally eradicate Hamas, even as the Palestinian militant group says it's discussing new proposals from mediators for a ceasefire in Gaza. Also coming up for you in a few moments' time, we're going to be crossing live to the UN Conference on Financing of Development in Seville to talk about the end of US aid and the billions of dollars of cuts that will mean for those who need it the most. I'll be talking to Country Director of ActionAid Zambia in a few minutes' time.
Good morning. Is Rachel Reeves' career on the brink?
The Chancellor's future hangs in the balance following tears in the Commons during Prime Minister's questions.
Earlier we spoke to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting.
Not just my colleague, she's my friend, and I think there are lots of people who are watching who will think about some of our own experiences from time to time where we've had things going on in our lives outside of work that sometimes bring to work with you, and that yesterday was one of those occasions.
As government borrowing costs surge and markets react to the PM's failure to publicly back the Chancellor, is this the end of the road for Rachel Reeves?
Rumours swirling in Westminster, but the Prime Minister insists that Rachel Reeves' tears have nothing to do with politics and that the pair of them are in lockstep.
Well, meanwhile, the Prime Minister is going to unveil the 10-year plan for the NHS today, hailed as the most radical shake-up in its history.
Greater Manchester Police, after apologising for decades of grooming gang failures, is now investigating over 1,000 suspects.
Sean Diddy Combs denied bail after being convicted of prostitution-related offences.
A right royal welcome. The King and Queen lead celebrations in Edinburgh as Hollywood Week gets underway.
Playing a bit of a game here to delay until all of us have died, all the nuclear veterans.
We hear from nuclear veterans bravely sharing their struggle for justice following their exposure to hazardous material during weapons testing.
So
Talk Sport this morning. At Wimbledon, Emma Raducanu beat the 2023 champion yesterday, but the world number one, Arina Sabalenka, awaits her in round 3. Highlights today: Dan Evans plays 7-time champion Novak Djokovic, and Jack Draper against Marian Cilic. And time for some rabbit pie again, we're hoping this morning. Second test at Edgbaston this morning with India 310 for 5.
Plenty of contrasts across the UK during the next couple of days. Warm, sunny spells in the south. Further north, well, let's just say it won't be quite as warm or sunny. Full details in the forecast coming up soon.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Africa News. The news.
The European Union Migration Commissioner Magnus Brunner said on Tuesday that the EU would take a firm approach with Libyan authorities following a rise in illegal migration across the Mediterranean. In the first 2 months of 2025, the central Mediterranean route saw a 48% increase in illegal border crossings compared to last year. Magnus Brunner plans to travel to Libya next week with government representatives from Greece, Italy and Malta. He discussed the upcoming visit in a meeting with Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis in Athens. The European delegation will demand tougher measures from Libyan authorities to stop boats carrying migrants from leaving for Europe. Brunner said the delegation will meet both the United Nations-recognized government in western Libya and the rival authority in the east of the country. Despite human rights abuses and conflict gripping the country, Libya remains a key departure point for sea crossings. The central Mediterranean route is one of the most active and dangerous migration paths towards Europe. In 2023, hundreds of people died when a fishing boat carrying migrants from Libya to Italy sank off the Greek coast. 542 migrants were reported dead or missing since the start of 2025, according to the Missing Migrants Project. The persistent number of victims has prompted concerns across the EU. Greece recently announced plans to send warships to international waters in the Mediterranean following a surge in crossings from Libya to the southern Greek island of Crete.
Clashes with police and at least 7 dead. Violent protests have shaken Togo in the past week. While opposition parties and civil society organizations decried the brutality of police forces against protesters, one voice was missing: ECOWAS. Faced with criticism for its silence, the regional body eventually published a press release on Tuesday evening and called for restraint in the violent clashes. The ECOWAS Commission also said that it remained available to contribute to efforts to preserve social peace in the Togolese Republic. The very first protests in Togo started at the beginning of June. Citizens took to the streets to express their discontent with the high cost of living and the regime under the control of Faure Gnassingbé. Gnassingbé has been in power since 2005, when he succeeded his father, who had led the country for almost 4 decades. A recent reform has allowed Gnassingbé to concentrate executive power in his hands, without limits to the number of terms he could stay in office.
The world risks reversing decades of progress in the fight against AIDS if urgent funding gaps aren't addressed. UN AIDS Executive Director warned on Monday during a press conference at the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development, FFD4.
We could see 4.2 million more AIDS-related deaths. That includes 300,000 children. Again, last year, the number of AIDS-related deaths for the year was 630,000. In 4 years' time, you could add to this 4.2 million. Clearly, you can see that a pandemic that has been declining could be resurging again. The crisis is real.
The UN AIDS chief stressed that the looming threat is tied to the potential loss of the world's biggest donor, who currently provides 73% of all international AIDS response funding.
We need the rich countries to back the fundamental structural reforms that will give developing countries a chance to raise their own domestic resources and pay for their development. So they must embrace, we want rich countries in particular to embrace debt justice, tax justice, intellectual property justice, and new models of financing such as the global public investment idea.
Without bold action, the UN AIDS chief warned that the world could witness 6.6 million new HIV infections by the end of the decade.
The jury finally reached a verdict in the Diddy case on Wednesday after 2 months of a trial that captivated the United States. American hip-hop mogul Sean Combs, otherwise known as P. Diddy, was convicted of prostitution-related offenses is on the jury's third day of deliberations. The 55-year-old star received the verdict in front of his family and supporters. Combs was found guilty of flying people across the country to engage in sexual encounters, but he was acquitted of the most serious charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. Several women, including his ex-girlfriend Cassandra Ventura, accused the rapper of forcing them to participate in drug-fueled sex marathons with various men. Combs and his defense team argued that the women were willing participants. The star escapes prison for life, but he could still spend time behind bars. His convictions each carry a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. The Manhattan Federal Court has not yet announced a sentencing date. Combs' lawyers have asked for his release on bail in the meantime. Prosecutors objected, citing the violent nature of his crimes. The judge adjourned the court while he considers whether to
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.